Hey everyone, welcome back to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica.
So it's that time again. It's time for our Bestie Book Tea, where we get to talk about all the books that we read throughout the week. So make sure you grab yourself something to drink. It's actually afternoon, so I have a Pepsi. And
I have coffee.
Exactly. Grab that favorite coaster and let's talk about the books we read. Okay, so Mandy, how many books did you read this week?
I got 5 in. I've been sick this week, so I've just haven't had the attention span to read.
I get that. I always think that when I have surgery, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read after. Don't let it fall. I've had it bruise the bridge of my nose before. When it fell, I was balancing it with my boobs, and then it, crashed. And I know that feeling of being sick because when I have surgery, I'm always like, I'm going to get all these books read. And then surgery days come and I'm like, I'm just going to sleep. Thank you. Okay. So what did I say? I said 6. I read 6.
Yes.
Okay. So what was your first read?
Do we want to do this first?
Oh, yes, we do. We want to do that. I'm totally getting sidetracked. Yes. Okay. So we did our reading challenge this week, and our reading challenge was read. What does it say?
Read in a place you've never read before.
So where did you read?
Mine's
not exciting either.
I know. I like to read everywhere because I just basically keep my Kindle in my purse, so I read like wherever I'm at. So this week I read at the middle school gym while I was waiting for halftime to be over at my son's basketball game.
There you go. Well, I read mine is not exciting at all because I've been working crazy, so I actually read at the different desk than what I normally read because the friend that I am contracted with is out of state, and so I'm doing her job and mine. So I read at her desk this week, so that was a first. So let's see what we got. What's in here? What is this?
It looks like it's a keychain.
Oh, that's cute.
Keychain. That is adorable. I love it.
Somewhere the dogs will eat it. That's the kind they will definitely eat.
That's cute.
That's very cute. Okay, so what's the next one we're going to do?
Okay, so if we keep going straight down, it is read about a person with a disability.
Ooh.
So I'm thinking that could be all sorts of... Oh my gosh, I know what I'm going to read.
Oh my gosh, what are you going to read?
I'm going to read The Girl in the Front Row. I talked about this in the books that I've been wanting to read when we did the video at the beginning of the year. And I haven't read it yet, but she has a vision disability, which I had LASIK, but prior to that, the way the book is described, I'm like, I think I can relate because if I didn't have my glasses or my contacts in, I wouldn't know somebody who is standing directly in front of me. Like my vision is really, really bad.
That's why I was able to walk you into a tree when we were seniors.
Yes. Thank you for
that. You're welcome. It's okay. I mean, I learned. It's all good.
So I've been wanting to read this book. So yeah, that's what I'm going to read. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, let's wrap this up. Gotta go read.
Oh, geez Louise. I'm not sure what I'm going to read, but I'll find something. Okay. So, let's talk about your first book.
Okay, my first book was a book I read for convincing my bestie to read fantasy. So I read The Fae King's Curse. And oh no, I didn't write down the author. Who was the author again?
Jamie Schlosser.
That's right. So it's the book about Quinn and is it Kieran?
I would say Kieran.
Okay. Kieran. And so she's a girl who feels like she's just very plain. She gets bullied at school and she spends all of her time outside and she meets Carrion.
Whatever. We'll go with however you say it. It's okay. We'll go with it.
So he comes through the portal and they have this friendship and it is a really cool book. He is blind. I just can't talk today. Oh my gosh.
It's a curse. There's a curse.
Yes. Okay. So he comes through the portal, but he has a curse on him that keeps him blind until he finds his fated mate. And their friendship goes on. One day in our world is a year in his world. So he ends up being like significantly older than her. And one day he just pulls her through the portal because it's her 18th birthday, right? It was her 18th birthday.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And he is like in love with her and he does not care about the fated mate part. He loves her. And that is just what really like made me want to read the story, because here he is willing to give up his sight to be with her. And that's pretty impactful, I think.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed the story. You can hear more about this book and our fantasy recs in our fantasy book rec video, which we will link below.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important.
Read.
It was a good read. And I think it's important that when they first meet, he is roughly her age. But as she gets older, he gets older because he has to go home and wait a whole year. Like she'll say, see you tomorrow. And he has to go home and wait a whole year before her tomorrow. Like
that was hard to wrap my head around, but that also just made me more intrigued with how much he must really care about her.
Yeah, because he waited so long. Yeah.
Yes.
If you hear whining in the background, it's our German Shepherd. He can tell that the cat is out in the rest of the house. So
okay,
he's not happy. He wants to eat them.
What's your next book?
So my next read was Heartless by Elsie Silver. So
I've been wanting to read this too.
Yeah, so this is the second book in her Chestnut Springs series, and I talked about the first book a couple weeks back. But the first book is about the bull rider, and this is about his older brother. So the older brother is like, he's got a 5 or 6 year old son. He's a little boy named Luke, and he is just this surly, never smiles, grumpy older brother. He's always taking care of the family, and he needs a nanny because the little boy's been hanging out with the grandpa for quite a while, and grandpa's more like the fun guy. He's never going to be he's a fun role model, but he's not who you want spending all your time with your kid. They're just going to get into trouble, the two of them. And so Cade is his name. Cade is looking for a nanny, and he's gone through like all the women in the town because they all like Cade. And so they've all applied for this position. Nobody works, and nobody's working out for him. Like nobody who's interviewed is worth it. And so then the heroine from the first book mentions her friend Willa. So this is her best friend. And so Willa comes into the picture. He hires her reluctantly, but he does hire her. She's like a breath of fresh air. She kind of says what comes to her mind. She brings the fun with her, and that's what they need. I love it because he's such a grump. And there's the opening scene where their meet cute is really hilarious, actually. And it involves a pair of panties. And she doesn't like to, I don't want to give it away because it's too good, but she doesn't wear a bra and underwear every day. Like it's just kind of depends on what she's wearing, because God forbid panty lines, God forbid panty lines, right? And so every day when she's watching his kid, he will text her and be like, are you wearing underwear today? Like it's a thing between them. And she, jokingly gives him a hard time. And so he's got some trauma from like how his son came about. And she's the type that she's fun, but yet when she loves you, she will do anything to protect you and defend you. And that's what they need. And so there is a little bit of rodeo aspect to this one as well, because he joins a rodeo team for wrestling cattle, I think is what it was for. And so you do still get to see some bits and pieces of the rodeo, not as much as in the first book, but I think I liked this one even more than the first book. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I love their dynamic. And let me just say, Cade, he's got the dirty talk down good. Like you didn't realize it, and he's a little tiny bit dominant. You get the extra dom in him, but not that he's dominant, but he's dominant. Like I wasn't expecting it. And, oh wow, that was good. That was good. So I loved it. You have to read it soon.
Okay.
It's so good.
I believe it's on my TBR already.
Yeah, and that audio just came out this week, so I was able to listen to it. Like, just came out, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. So,
did you enjoy the audio?
I did enjoy the audio.
Okay.
2 great narrators, and because it was dual narration, and it was great. It was great.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll have to check that out because, like I said, I'm not feeling super great. So listening to an audiobook actually sounds quite nice.
Listen to the first one. I mean, you don't have to read the first book to jump into this one. You can just jump into this one, but you're going to enjoy it more if you do, because you're going to recognize the characters, because the siblings all come into play. So, yeah. Okay, what else? What did you read?
Okay, I read Better Than a Box of Chocolates. It was an Audible short. Have you heard of it?
No, was Forrest Gump involved?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so this is an Audible. It's a short one. It's by Emily March. It follows Allie and Max, and Allie has sworn off Valentine's Day for a variety of reasons, and she goes on location to do a photo shoot for her best friend. And that's when she meets Max. It's, like I said, it's an Audible short, so there's really not a ton to say without just telling you exactly what happens in the whole story. It's a little over the top, but it was a fun, quick listen. It's basically a super meet cute that, you know, the traditional, like, the girl is scorned, so she hates Valentine's Day, and obviously Max is going to come in and change that for her. So it was a fun, quick listen that I enjoyed.
Good. I know I had a little novella that I read next that I'm not going to really talk about, because I mentioned in our last weekly wrap up that I had read, was it Dead of Eve? That it was a Pam Godwin. Yeah, Dead of Eve. And so then this was a little novella that's called Heart of Eve. But it literally was the male's POV in a section of the book that, it was just a recap. I would recommend reading that if you want to see if you want to read the actual series.
Okay.
So, but then next, after our last video, and I said I didn't read a lot of historicals, I read a historical. But it's not like a historical, like, it's not like an old historical. It was more of a contemporary historical, because it took place just before Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Oh, so I thought you were going to be like, it took place in 1990.
No, that is not historical. That was yesterday. Okay, so this one, the book I read is Morning Glory by Laverne Spencer. I hope I'm saying that correct. So this one I didn't realize had been made into a movie. This is actually a really loved book. The male character in the movie is played by Christopher Superman. Who was Superman, Mandy? Seriously. Christopher Reeves. Christopher Reeves.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
That took me a second. The movie does not do the book justice at all. I actually watched it this morning while I was waiting for you to wake up and tell me you were ready to go. So, anyhow, does not do the book justice.
I'm sick. That's why I wasn't.
I know. It's okay. So anyhow, this is about Will Parker, who is an ex-con. He is just getting out of a 5-year stint in prison. And like I said, it takes place just before Pearl Harbor is bombed. So, mid-1900s. So he is an ex-con. He's just gotten out of prison. He's spent 5 years in prison in Texas, and he comes, he's kind of working his way, trying to find a place to belong. And when the book opens up, he is eating these green apples because he hasn't eaten it forever, and he's sick, or not sick. He's starving, and he's working at this mill, and he gets fired. Because they find out that he is an ex-con. Like, he's worked 2 whole days, and they find out that he just got out of prison, and they don't want him there. So they fire him. He goes into town, and someone made a joke about crazy Ellie Dinsmore, or crazy Mrs. Dinsmore, having an ad in the local paper looking for a husband. And so he goes and he asks somebody at the a little cafe there if he could see the paper. Sorry, I can't talk today either, apparently. He asked if he could see the paper, and she, gives him a copy of the paper because he didn't have the money to go buy the paper himself. And there's an ad in there saying that, she's got a farm and she needs someone to come work the farm. And so she's looking for a husband. And so he goes out there because he doesn't have any other options. And he meets this young girl. Throughout the whole book, they called each other like Mrs. Densmore and Mr. Parker. And I'm like, that's different. I mean, I get why, but that's just different. Eventually they start going by first names. But he meets her, and she has 2 little boys, one who's not even potty trained yet, and then one who's a few years old, and then she's pregnant with a third. And he sees her, and he's like, whoa, like, what is the deal here? Did the husband run off? And she was like, no, my husband's buried out back. This is his baby. He didn't run off, because it's just after the Depression, and so a lot of husbands ran off during that time, is the way he justifies that, asking her that. And then they agree to not get married right away. He agrees to stay he wants to stay in the barn and try things out, but he is like, he hasn't been loved at all in his life. Like, he was in the system and whatever. So having someone to love him was a big deal. Having her love was a big deal. And it was a really good story. It takes us into World War II. You see letters back and forth. It was really good. I gave it 5 stars. I really loved it. For being a historical, it is in third person, which is a little hard, but I listened to the audio again, because that's all I can do this week. I listened to the audio, and I really liked it. It was just very touching. Their story was really touching. The movie, not so much. In the movie, everything happened really fast, and I didn't like that. You couldn't see the relationship building. Her husband gets killed because he's like monkeying with these bees, and he falls from a tree or something. He was one of those people that always had like a pipe dream, and he was always trying to make big money. And so when Will mentions working with the bees to make them money, she flips out and throws an egg at him, because she's cooking in the kitchen. There's just cute moments, because she just didn't want to lose him. There's cute moments, and there's really touching moments, and there's some big drama and all the other stuff. So
yeah, I found that in a lot of times in books, you don't get the buildup of the relationship.
In movies, you mean?
Yeah, like in the book, you get the buildup. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then you watch the movie, and it's like, but this is nothing like the book, because all that gets skipped.
Yeah.
And so there's so many, like, for example, Twilight, like if you read the Twilight books, Edward like loves Bella. But if you watch the movie, it's like he's like almost like
Weird.
borderline stalkerish weird.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some people who like that's a little controversial, series and stuff. But I think if you just look at the movie, it does come off weird. But if you've read the book, you already know all of this other stuff that surrounds us. And yeah.
And it drives you nuts, because like the big bad in the movie is not the same big bad in the book. It's the same idea, but it's changed the person. The things that just drove me nuts. And I didn't feel a chemistry between the 2 main characters in the movie, where you can feel it in the book between the 2 main characters. So what did you read next?
Okay, so my next book is called Hold On to Hope, and it's by A.L. Jackson. Okay, so I struggled with this book on how I was going to rate it, because when I finished it, I'm like, this was a 4-star read. And then I was like, actually, no, it was a 3-star read. It fell flat in so many areas for me. The writing is good. It just was the storyline just didn't fit for me. And so I think that's where I kind of teetered between the 3 and the 4, because it wasn't bad writing or anything like that. It was just the storyline. And so, well, Jessica, this is where I wanted to get at. I think, okay, let me tell you the start of this book, though.
Okay.
Evan is deaf. Evan basically walked out of her life 3 years ago, and he just shows up. He's had like no contact really with anybody. And he just walks into the bakery that his mom owns, that she works at, with a young, like, I think we find out he's 15 months old or so, baby on his hip 3 years later. Now, see, wouldn't you be like, must read this book?
Yes, immediately.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
But it didn't do it.
But it just falls flat. And I'm referring to my notes a little bit more than I should, because again, I'm not like feeling 100%. So as I just said, so Frankie Lee's standing there, and she is like in shock. His mom is in shock. And we also, so the book works kind of, it goes in flashbacks, but a lot of the stuff that we don't find out until like almost the end of the book would have actually been better for me at the beginning of the book, because I think I could have related and understood where the characters were coming from, because he also has a heart condition. And so he's sort of justifying how he just walked out on her like that because he doesn't believe that he's going to be able to live a long and full life because of this heart condition. And he couldn't stand that his parents were constantly looking at him like, you know, panicking like every time like something would go wrong. Like, oh my gosh, like he just hated how people were always looking at him like he felt like a burden, but nobody actually felt that way about him, but he felt that way about himself. And he loved Frankie Lee so much that he justifies just abandoning her. I mean, he straight up abandoned her. He left her in the morning with a note. And he justifies it because he feels like she should get to go on and, you know, find somebody who can love her for life and, you know, have kids and a family, all that stuff with. And that's how he justifies it. But then he shows back up with this baby. And everybody knows immediately that it's his because of how the kid looks and everything. And so the book just didn't work for me because I just couldn't understand why he felt that way. And there's more information that's given, but it's not till like the end of the book. And it, like I said, if it would have been at the beginning of the book, maybe I would have felt differently about the story. But basically, he finds out he has this kid and just comes back to town because he needs help with the baby. Because the mom just disappears and there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But then he just decides that he wants Frankie Lee back. But it just irritated me because the only reason he came back was because of this kid. And then he just decides, like, well, I should never have left her in the first place. It was just weird. I didn't like how it came back together like that because he was the one who left. And then he just decides, well, we're going to be back together. Like it just didn't work for me. But the thought of the story is fantastic. But the way it worked out, I didn't care for either one of the hero or the heroine, and it just didn't work for me. So it was a 3-star read for me. I'm sure other people will love it, but for me, it just didn't work.
And I'm wondering if that's A.L. Jackson's writing, because there was a book that I read by her that was similar, and I couldn't, I think I DNF'd it. I couldn't even get through it. I don't know. I mean, it's worth it to try another book at some point, but for right now, no, I think it's her writing. If not like for some people to work, for you and I, obviously it didn't. So.
But hey, anybody else, go check it out. I mean, other people don't agree with me because I think it was rated like a 4 point something on Goodreads. So other people are enjoying it. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah. So, okay. So
check triggers for that book because there are a few traumatic things that happen that maybe you want to check triggers for.
Once again, if you have triggers, check your triggers because, books always have triggers that we read. Always. And they're not always like blatantly obvious. So, okay. Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. So, last week I read the first book in the series, or the second book in the series. This is the first book in the series. So I had to go back and read it because I love the second book so much. So this is my Mystic box copy. So, like, can you see that? It's mountains, Mandy. Can you see that? That's so cool.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is about Winslow. She moves to this area. The town is called Quincy, Montana, to be the new chief of police. Her grandpa is the mayor. Her grandpa's the mayor. And so she has to prove that she wasn't hired because her grandpa was the mayor, which people who did the hiring knew that because they had like a committee to do the hiring, but there's still a lot of prejudice towards her because she's a woman. And it's a little tiny town in Montana. So she moves to this town. Her first night there, she's at a bar. She sees this guy who's absolutely gorgeous. And they have a one-night stand. And so then the next morning, she's having breakfast with her grandpa at like one of the cafes. And grandpa's like, oh, you met the guy. I can't remember their last names. But it's like the family that founded the town. they're like, and they run everything. And he's like, oh, you met this guy, the dad of the guy she slept with. He's like, you met him last, when you were interviewing. He's part of the interview process. That's how, you were hired. Oh, and then here's his oldest son, Griffin. And it's the guy that she had in a one-night stand with the night before. And so Griffin's just gruff. He runs their family ranch. He's, obviously grumpy because, they're not fun if they're not grumpy. So he's grumpy. He's not really looking for a relationship, but they decide they can't keep their hands off of each other. And so they just start up a little fling. In the meantime, though, there's a girl who they find dead at the bottom of Indigo Ridge. And at first they're saying it's suicide, but Winslow doesn't think so. Like, she's not the first one to end up at the bottom of Indigo Ridge. And so her gut is just telling her that something isn't right. And so she starts investigating that. So you not only have their relationship and the building of that relationship and what's going to happen there, but you also have this murder mystery that she's trying to figure out in this little small town. And like, who is it really a murder? Who done it? That whole thing. So I really enjoyed it. Again, I gave it 5 stars. I really liked this book. This was really good.
Sounds like you're having a good reading week.
I was having a good listening week. But yes, I was having a good week for the most part. I'll tell you about the next one in a minute.
Okay.
All
right, Jessica. I read The Frat Boy.
I have not, but I heard about it all week.
From who?
I don't know. Oh, there goes my light. You tell me all about it.
Yes. So I read The Frat Boy by Nikki, Sloane. So I want to start off by saying the Nashville neighborhood is an insane, wild neighborhood. Uh-huh. I've read all 4 books in it. The Doctor was okay. I loved The Pool Boy. It's like one of my favorite reads. The Architect was a little weird for me. And I was really hoping for more like Pool Boy type vibes from The Frat Boy. But The Frat Boy, I rated it a 3 and I feel bad but this is why. And maybe I shouldn't rate it a 3 because I should have known what I was getting into when I started reading it. But I'm just going to be 100% honest. It was too pornographic. Like, it was too focused in their porn world for me. That's all. That's why it was
wow.
That is probably more of a personal thing. It wasn't smut. It was like straight up porn. Okay. So this follows Colin and Madison. They get into a fight at their Greek sorority. His would be a frat house. Hers is a sorority. They're doing this competition and they get into a fight because they cheated and she knows it. And so him and her get into this like altercation of a mud fight. And the college is like really irritated by it. And so they end up getting kicked out of their houses. And because of surrounding circumstances that you learn throughout the book, they have nowhere else to go. Like, this is where they had to live to go to school. And so they both end up not, and by the way, they do not like each other. They don't care for each other at all, especially after this altercation. But they both end up answering an ad for a porn company, and it comes with housing. And so they end up living in this house where there's 6 people and they make porn. This is the book, and I would say pretty much most of this book is about that. But hidden underneath all of that is a really sweet story between Colin and Madison and how they stop hating each other and start to form a relationship. That part was really good. I enjoyed that. This is what I struggle with, though, because I am a traditionalist when it comes to my romances. I am not a reverse harem fan. Love triangles make me uneasy. Just throwing it all out there. I like when, I don't care if the guy is a man whore or the woman sleeps around, but when they come together, like, I want them to be focused on each other and love each other. And that's like the end goal. So open relationships, things like that, that's just not my cup of tea. So that is probably another reason why this book just didn't resonate with me, because of my feelings that way. Like I just like the traditional, more of a traditional romance, like ending, I guess, is what I need. So I struggle to relate to couples who are like, oh, I don't care if you are doing that with somebody else.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I'm in the room watching, like I just don't. It's just not for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'll read a
So,
good reverse harem as long as it's done properly, but I tend to agree with you on a lot of that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Nikki Sloane writes. So if you are looking for some straight up hardcore smut, go for the Frat Boy. But if you want some smut with a really good story, read the Pool Boy.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Endorsed by Mandy.
I also don't feel well, so this could be why some of my reads this week have not got high reviews.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's like the books that I read after surgery and I don't remember that I read them. It's always a problem. Okay. So
sound like you're addicted to like plastic surgery or something.
No, we both know that that's not the case. You just had 2
I
years
know,
full of
people
surgery.
who are just watching our video, they've heard you reference your surgeries. Well, when I have surgery, like you just toss it out there like you're going to the dentist.
Breast reconstruction, and I've had 8 because it's not a one and done deal.
Yes, I think people just maybe need to know that so they
need to know that a little bit. Yeah, had 8 in the last 2 years. Okay, so I want absolutely no laughing.
Should I just mute myself? What's gonna happen? Oh my god, you read an alien reverse harem.
No, those do exist, but no. I read. Thank you, Facebook, for recommending, but I don't know that I should say thank you. I don't even know why I jumped on this train.
You always tell me not to look at Facebook book recommendations.
I told you that, and I didn't even listen to my own advice. So, okay, you ready for this? It's really bad because my husband's sitting right here, and he's gonna hear it. Daddy Biker Bear.
Daddy bite your what?
Biker, as an MC, biker.
Daddy
bear.
Biker?
Daddy bear. Biker Bear. He's a shifter. He's a bear shifter. You know, the author is Roxie Ray. Anyhow, it was put out there. It had audio. I was not, because we've talked about me working crazy the last 2 weeks. I didn't have where I could really like engage in a book that wasn't, where I had to think a lot.
So were you engaging with Daddy Biker?
So this was a 3-star read for me. I'm going to tell you why. It's got nothing to. Honestly, the author could have even taken out the bear part, and I'd have been happy. Like that didn't even need to be in there. I mean, it was a little bit needed in there, but not really. Okay, so let me tell you about the book, and I'll tell you why it was only 3. Okay. So this story is about Zoe, who is human, and Grizz, which is his nickname. It's his road name. I can't remember what his first name really was, but they she goes to visit. So she had an older sister. Her older sister was killed in a car accident. So her parents have kind of kept her under their thumb because it was a drinking and driving situation when she was in a senior or something in high school. So Zoe, or she likes to go by Zoe, just turns 18. Her aunt calls her and says, "Come visit me for the summer in Idaho." And she's like, here I come. Her parents okayed it, so she went to go visit her aunt in Idaho. And when she gets there, the first day she meets this girl, and the girl's like, I like you. Hey, you want to come to a party with me? And so she goes to a party that night. When they get to this big warehouse party, she realizes that these kids are not 18. They're older. And they've all got these tattoos of these bears on them, and they're all wearing these leather jackets. And she can tell it's not just a typical high school party. Come to find out that this area houses this bear shifter community because at some point in time it came out that there were shifters of all kinds in the world, and they have to live in these little communities. Anyhow, she meets Grizz. Her and Grizz have a summer fling. Now he tells her, she gives him her virginity and everything, the whole 9. She's falling in love with him. Yeah, I know. He tells her apparently shifters cannot get humans pregnant, and then they can't get STDs. So I guess there's no reason to use condoms then. Whatever. So she gets pregnant. And she goes to tell him.
That is a shocking twist that I did not see coming.
Shocker. That's where the daddy comes in. The daddy part.
Oh God.
Not like your daddy books. No. That's where the daddy part comes in. So she goes to tell him, and he's having sex with somebody else. So she leaves. And she's gone for like 9 years. She goes to college. She goes back home with her parents. And then her aunt, who lives in this small town in Idaho, ends up having a stroke. And she's become a nurse. So she moves back to this little town to take care of her aunt. Her parents are no longer around. And so she takes her little boy and goes. In the meantime, the little boy's starting to show some signs of possibly being a shifter or shifting himself. Grizz didn't believe her that it was his baby because he was told that, no, that's not possible. And so he completely, just brushed her off and treated her like crap. So here's the deal. This is why I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't even like the premise of the book was, honestly, it was a good book. It was a good book as far as the storylines. The part that I had a very hard time with is it happens a couple of different times. I think at least 2 times, if not 3 times in this book, where Grizz does something, and instead of making him grovel and like have to, especially this whole denying this kid could be his kind of things and basically calling her a hoe and sending her on her way, she forgives him like that. Like there's no grovel. And she's like, oh, okay. That is what I had a hard time with, because no, that's not how real life works. That's not how, even in a book, I get that we read fiction because it's fiction, but at the same time, man needs to grovel. He does a couple things that are just absolutely horrible, and she forgives him. Now, I get it. I don't need that drama at the 70% mark where they break up and they get back together. I love it when books don't have that. But at the same time, he still's got to make up for the stupid stuff he did. So that's why it was 3 stars. It annoyed me.
I can see that.
But it was still a good book if you can get past the fact that she forgives him so fast. And don't let the title fool you. It was still good. The shifter part was only a little part of it. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Mandy's not going to jump on this book. I can tell you right now.
No.
Hey, but they weren't doing porn.
I should have known what I was buying.
A little bit. Okay, what's your last?
I don't know. I guess with the frat boy, I thought it was being done more out of desperation, but she really wanted to explore this side of herself, which good for her. It's just not something I could really relate to. Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of the problem. I don't know. Yeah. I also don't feel good. So
I know. Okay, so tell me your last book.
I should reread all these books in a couple months and see if I change my mind.
If they hit different for you?
Yeah, I don't think so, though. Okay, my last book is Restore Me by J.L. Seegers. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of the author.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This is a solid 4 for me. It follows Sloane and Dominic, otherwise known as Dom or Nick. It's dual point of view. Sloane's husband, so she is 30. Her husband passed away 4 years ago. She met her husband in college, so he was the love of her life, and he passed away 4 years ago. She is, I want to say, still kind of grieving and dealing with some guilt. This also goes back in time, so we read some chapters in the present and we read a chapter in the past, that sort of thing. So the whole kind of, there's things we don't quite know, and it unravels as we read the book. But unlike the other book I read, I actually really enjoyed the order this went in. It fit really well with the story. Dominic is Sloane's husband's best friend, who she has felt has hated her all this time. So I'm sure you can kind of go back and think, why would somebody hate her? Oh, yes, because he has feelings for her. Mm-hmm. And we find out more about that as the book goes along. Sloane has sworn off that because she has some guilt around her husband's death and things, she's sworn off she's just never going to love again. She had her one great chance at love, and how could you find that again in this lifetime type thing? So she has not had dates or anything for 4 years. And one thing I liked about this book is it talks about mental health and therapy and things like that. So I think that's always important, especially when you're dealing with the topic of like being widowed when you're 26, like, and dealing with that. So I think it's great that mental health awareness is brought into this book and like open discussion about therapy. So her therapist basically explains to her that she's having like basically like a skin hunger. Like she went from being in this relationship where somebody was always there to like hug her and cuddle her and sleep next to her at night to like absolutely nothing for 4 years. That her body is like craving, you know, some sort of affection. So like her skin just needs to be touched, basically, if that makes sense.
I get it.
And she is startled when there's a thing that happens at a club that Dom awakens this weird passion and fire in her, and she doesn't quite understand why. And so eventually they end up deciding to be in a situationship, basically, where he's going to allow her to like use him, basically. And so this is that story. It's really good, and it's interesting how it deals like with this sort of thing and the guilt, and like he was her husband's best friend, so how does that look and all that stuff, while portraying a pretty strong heroine in the book as well. So I really enjoyed it. I marked it a 4 just because I don't really know why it wasn't a 5-star read. Does that make sense to say that you don't really know why it wasn't a 5-star read, but it was a really good book?
Yeah.
I would recommend
always
it.
say 5-star reads for me are the books that I know that I would go back and reread.
Yeah.
At some point. 4-star is for me, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. It was good, but I don't know that I'll go back and reread it at any point in time.
Yeah, that's probably how I
Kind of how I
feel
look at
about
mine.
this.
Yeah. Okay, so for my last book, Mandy made me read. No, I'm kidding.
What?
No, so we filmed our convincing my bestie to read, and this was fake dating, and so that video should be out already by the time this video goes up, right?
Yes. Well, you
Yes.
can't tell us anything. You can't tell us if you like this book or not. It has to be a surprise for our next
Yeah,
book.
exactly. So I'll tell you a little bit of what it's about, but I
Okay.
can't tell you how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So I read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. And so this one is about Olive. Olive is an identical twin. Her twin Amy, yeah, there it is. Her twin Amy is getting married, and she wins all these contests all the time. Like she likes to get everything for free. So, and so like she gets everything for free for her wedding for the most part. They said that she had to shell out a little bit of money, but it wasn't much. And so that includes right down to the buffet, like everything. And so Olive is the sister who has crappy luck. And so Olive is actually allergic to shellfish and a shellfish buffet. And so she doesn't have to eat the buffet. And then the groom's older brother, was it Ethan? Yes, Ethan. He refuses to eat at buffets. Like there's a reason. He just will not eat buffets because he thinks they're germ-infested, gross. And so
I have to say, more and more, I am joining that train of thought. I hate potlucks.
Buffets. Oh. I don't know what animal, like we have dogs, and I think it's because we have animals in the house that I'm like, no. I know how particular I am about making sure that nothing shows up, like that my kitchen is clean when I cook. But I don't know that everybody's like that. You can't eat at everybody's house. Nope.
Yeah.
Anyhow, okay. So anyhow, lo and behold, everybody at the wedding, at the reception, gets food poisoning or like this horrible type of illness from the food. It's not just food poisoning. It's something that keeps them sick for weeks on end. So the sister has already won a trip to Hawaii for their honeymoon. And so the identical twin says, go on the trip. At the same time, the brother, who's the groom, tells his older brother, Ethan, go on the trip. And so they have to pretend that they're married to go on this trip because it's like if they find out, they'll get, I don't know what they'll get, but they'll get sent home or whatever. And so they take this trip together. They hate each other. They loathe each other. So it's just kind of, it's them on this trip. They run into a few people that make, like, it's very important that they stay looking like a newlywed couple during this time. They meet people from home. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. So that was my last read. And you can hear more later. So yeah. Okay, so that is what we have for you for this week. So join us next week to hopefully see that Mandy is over her cold. And doing better. Mandy, you're muted.
I had to blow my nose, so I muted myself.
Join us next week and Mandy will hopefully be healthy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what your favorite read of the week was down in the comments below.
And make sure to check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us.
Until then,
go read.